client and come back, because you've had that happen and I have, where clients have come back 6 months, a year later in a better position.
Yeah, it's not a no, it's a not yet.
Kind of like dating.
Don't
I'm
get
going to marry
started.
you now.
Don't get started.
That might be an outtake. All right, we're good. I'm going to press stop. Hello, and welcome back to the PPC Gals Podcast. So today, Ameet and I are back for another great episode. We're going to be spilling some tea, so to speak. So Ameet and I have been doing paid search for 30 years combined, and we've managed millions of dollars in ad spend. And if you listen to our recent episode, we are also paid search influencers top 50, so we know what we're talking about. So today,
I'd like to believe so.
Yes, I would think we're pretty fancy here at this point in our careers. So today we want to talk about red flag clients and audits, so agency client perspective and then an audit perspective, and essentially why Ameet would say, no, I am not taking your business, despite the fact that you absolutely love money. So we're spilling the tea here. So I guess Ameet, since you are comfortably sitting here with a smile on your face, do you want to get started with some of the red flags?
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting because obviously as an agency owner, we have leads come in. I mean, consistently, but like periodically there'll be the ones where we go back to them and we go, no. And sometimes it's because it's not a good fit. But oftentimes it's mainly because they're just not ready. A lot of businesses don't actually realize when they are ready for ads and when they're not ready for ads. And I think a lot of them have this notion of like, well, if I have the money to spend, I'm going to do it. And I would like to push back on that a little bit today. So for me, it's more or less of just like having your foundations ready. I think this was like maybe about a month or two ago. We had an e-com brand reach out and go, hey, we have $800 to spend. Can we do this? And because it was a referral and someone who's closer to me on a personal side, our director thought, well, I guess we have to push this through because like this person is connected to Ameet. And we actually ended up having a very lengthy conversation about this one more time where we're like, even if they're connected to me in some way, we're still not taking it on because at the end of the day, like, for me, that's Hopskip Media's reputation on the line, even if it is someone that I've known for 10, 20 years. Like, it doesn't matter. If they're not ready, they're not ready. So on my front, for them, it was the fact that they were selling a product that was averaging about $400 a piece. Their ad spend was $800. The math doesn't line up on that front. Also, their website wasn't fantastic. It was just kind of there. They hadn't put a lot of thought to it, you can tell. The video content that they had on their website was grainy. And when you think about things that are priced over like maybe $200, you're thinking a little bit more luxury and stuff like that as well, right? So that really wasn't coming through. So then I kind of sat there and I'm like, if I wasn't willing to purchase this bag for $400, I don't know if anybody else would, based off of this. So then we kind of had to go back and be like, okay, well, we need to make these website changes. And the response was, well, we'll fix it later. And that was not a response that I wanted to hear. When it came to ad spend, we were like, we prefer that you have like $1,500 per platform at the minimum. And they came back with $800 just for Meta, which could maybe work after a couple of months, but like we definitely weren't going to see results in the first couple of months just because the ad spend is so low in comparison to the price point of that product. And then also it just didn't feel like they had a unique USP. Like I sat there and I was like, well, what makes you different than like any other brand out there? What makes you different than like a Matt Nat that's been around for actually, I don't even know how long. I've been buying their bags for like at least 20 years at this point, which makes me feel a little old right now. But like, I've been like, there's a brand out there that's doing exactly the same thing. What makes you different? And there really wasn't anything there. And then add to the fact that it was a new business that didn't actually have a dedicated clientele, nor did it have any social platforms that it had much of a following. At that point, it was kind of really easy for us to go backwards and go, maybe you should wait. So that's kind of really like for me, it's more or less of just like listening to the client, thinking about whether the math works out in terms of like what their price point is compared to their ad spend, what their website look like. Who's their audience? If we're the ones discovering who their audience is in ads, I think that's slightly problematic because I feel like you should have some kind of indication of who your audience is before you start advertising, because then at that point you're just kind of throwing money into a black pit and you're just not going to get very far. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that absolutely makes sense. So basically you're saying a shoestring budget with no resources.
That's basically really kind of comes down to that. And especially when you don't know, and then taking a step further and just saying, oh, if you don't know who your audience is and your response is everyone's my audience, then that also is a little bit of an issue just because like everyone's not our audience. That's just not how this works out, right? Just like Coca-Cola, everybody is not an audience for them. They know who their audience is and they're a multi-billion-dollar possibly trillion. I don't know. A very large company, but they know who their customer is. And we have to do the exact same thing. Even if it might be on a micro level, it doesn't matter. We have to operate as if we are a Coca-Cola in a sense. We need to know who our audience is before we start throwing money towards getting them to purchase. Because if we don't know, then what's the point?
No, that makes sense. So basically, to sum it up so far, red flags for you are shoestring budget, no resources, right? Because images, videos, those are resources that we need to feed our campaigns. And then the third one that I would sum up there is, I guess, not knowing who they're speaking to, which would translate into you not being able to build the best ad copy and the best keywords because you have to know who you're talking to and then how that person searches and how that
even
person
as a creative as well, right? Like oftentimes we'll take a look at, who our audience is and mimic our creative that way. If we know that our audience is predominantly, let's say, Punjabi people, then I'm going to have an Indian person in my ad, or not my ad copy, sorry, my ad creative. That just makes logical sense. Same thing on everything else. If I say everyone's my audience, then how am I supposed to filter that down? I could have a group of people, but what if it's a product for one person? Now I have to test multiple different ethnicities just to find out which one actually sticks when we could have had that work done prior to.
Okay, so they don't know who they're speaking to. They have a shoestring budget. They do not have resources. Are there any other hard red flags?
I think expectations as well is a big one. Like, Idris is really great at figuring out how someone will be as a client, I guess, in terms of like, well, what are you expecting for results? And sometimes, especially for lead gen, like it might take 3-4 months for us to get to a place where we're actually consistently getting something. And that's just the nature of ads. Purchases, yeah, might be a little bit quicker just because like if we're not selling things, and especially if they're at a price point of like $50, $60, $70, like then clearly we know that there's an issue if we're not able to do that right away. But with lead gen, that's never always the case. So really listening to them and just trying to figure out what their expectations are and making sure that they do line up with what ads truly is. Because like for so many years, everybody just sat there and was like, well, just go put money towards ads. That's where we're going to make money. And that, yes, is true, but it's not like a faucet where I turn it on and suddenly all these leads are going to come through. And I feel like that's the one misconception that we constantly have to battle or face as agency owners or trainers or whatever. Is just like this isn't magic. We actually have to work at it. There's a whole science and math and all this wonderful stuff that comes in between all of that we have to figure out. And if you don't acknowledge that that's something that needs to happen, then you're likely not going to make a great client either.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if a prospect wants to be the number one player in a highly competitive market on a shoestring budget, demanding immediate results, guaranteed results, it is a recipe for disaster, disappointment, and frankly, a strained relationship. And I think what you really said here, I think was super important, is that your agency prides yourselves on delivering value, and that is going to require those realistic resources and expectations.
Yeah, and that's really it. It's just I want to make sure that obviously we maintain our reputation, but at the same time, like I got into this business because I really wanted to advocate for the clients, as corny as it might sound, because I'd like worked at an agency and that wasn't happening. So then I sat there and I'm like, well, if they're paying, shouldn't we be looking out for them? Like, isn't that, like, shouldn't we be on the same team? Like, it's not two separate teams. And I don't want to ever lose that. I actively try very hard to remember that that was the core value when I started, and that needs to stay the core value. So for me, that relationship, it means quite a bit. If you're not going to show up to phone calls or respond to emails, like, honestly, I get that you might be an easy client on that front, but like, I don't want it. Like, I want the people that want to talk to us. I want them to show up to the meetings and be like, this is going well and this isn't going well. Like, I really want that partnership. So much so that we'll forego some of those like easier clients because of it.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. So that you would consider probably like, would you call that like a red or a yellow flag with the poor communication and responsiveness?
I would say like yellow, somewhere in between, like an orange, somewhere in between that. Because it's not necessarily like a horrible thing, but it is at the same time. Because we've had clients do this where they'll come back after like 3 months and be like, well, ads suck. We're not doing anything. And I'm like, if you showed up for the call on month 1, we could have redirected. We could have fixed this. And now you've basically put yourself in a corner, and the only option for you is to fire the agency. And now in your mind, you're thinking the agency didn't do their job, but part of it was for you to show up for those calls. So like, where does the responsibility end and where does it get passed off to the agency is usually kind of one of those conversations that's really kind of tough to have. But if you want good results, you need to be talking to your agency. That's my firm belief.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think poor communication and responsiveness, especially during those initial conversations, is super key. It's a huge warning sign when you don't have that, especially, I mean, you own an agency, you have people who work for you, you have to think about the downward effect of workflows. So I don't know if people who haven't become clients understand, but we work across multiple clients and we have to go back and source those assets that we talked about from the website, from the imagery, and then take all those assets and then use those assets to build those into the campaigns. And if we don't have all of those assets, and what are the requirements right now? 20 images across different sizes and shapes for Performance Max. 3 to 5
like a 1
videos.
to 1 and 1 to 9, I think, ratio.
15 headlines or 20 headlines, I think, at this point.
15 headlines, 4 descriptions.
4 descriptions. Yeah. I mean, so if it takes days to reply to emails and then our clients are vague with their answers or not approving the ad copy in time or seem disorganized, it indicates that these are going to become potential communication breakdowns, which is going to then cause your internal team to break down and start being upset with you as the owner. And it can derail campaigns and it essentially wastes everyone's time, clients' time, your time. And we all know that sometimes clients will come back and blame us as the agency for the fact that a campaign didn't launch on time and forget that we need our assets to be able to launch a campaign. So yeah,
Yep,
I hear.
exactly. Yeah, that's kind of, you summed it up really, really well. But I guess my question back to you is like, is there anything outside of, I guess, what I said would cause you to say no to an audit client?
Yeah, I certainly. So for me, I would look at a history of churning through agencies. So if I open the ads account, right, so people come to me for an audit, which is different than management, is a, hey, I want to see what's going wrong. And if I open that account and I see a history of agencies and setup where previous PPC providers have failed them without any self-reflection, it's going to give me a pause because the common denominator might be that client. I want to work with a partner that's willing to take ownership and collaborate in the audit. So I do the audit, I deliver, I have that conversation with them. I don't want them to look back and say, well, this didn't work or what you suggested is impossible because of XYZ. So that's absolutely something that I look at. I would also say ethical misalignment. That's a non-negotiable. You know, if a prospect's values don't align, I have had experience working in industries that aren't necessarily fully above ground. You find that a lot in like the supplements industry, not to call a specific industry, but sometimes they're on the edge of not being something that you can advertise in Google because the website is making faulty promises and things like that. And despite what a lot of people think, we can't just make claims in Google. Those landing pages do go through review. And so that would be a case where I'd be really hesitant to get into an audit because they're thinking like, oh, you're going to make these ads get approved. That may not be able to happen. Happens a lot, again, inadvertently, but when you think about like the auto industry, so if you're working with auto dealers, they want to do a lot of ads saying like Honda's in stock, Nissan's in stock. They're not Honda. That might be a used vehicle. I can't make guarantees that that is going to get that ad approved if you make the changes that I suggest. So I think it's like things like that is where I have to set those expectations ahead of time. I would also say another one is lack of respect for my expertise or my process. And I know when this happened to me that I called you as a business owner on this. So I had a client that set up a discovery call, opened their account, and just started rapid firing to me what to do. Well, I actually have 2 separate like business productizing a service for that, right? I have a 1-hour consulting call where you can open your account. You do not need to give me access or ownership, and I will tell you everything I know in an hour, literally an on-the-spot audit. That is a low bar, a low cost product that I have for me. It's that 1-hour consulting, and you can video it and walk away with those takeaways. Then my other one is obviously the audit, which would be more in depth. And so this person was just going on and on and on, would not let me get a word. What's wrong? This isn't working. I need this many leads. And just, there was a clear lack of respect there. And I said, no, I'm not going to do this. I would not even take an hour consulting call because clearly they were not open from the very get-go. And that's definitely a problematic.
Most definitely.
And then I would also add, and this one's a tough one, but it comes off of a podcast I was a guest on with Danny Gavin today. And we were talking about something off the podcast, so I'm going to kind of restate this in a way that where I can be privacy centric. It is a red flag to me when a client is extremely desperate. I think we all, as paid search experts, want to be wanted. You want to be wanted. You want people to be like, yes, I want, Hop Skip Media because you're the best. I want Sarah to come to Sarah Stemen because I am the best. But when there is that level of your agency is going to solve my failing business or fix my failing business, or your audit is my last resort, that is a time when I give pause, especially when they're laser focused on me being the solution and not a paid search.
Yeah, my favorite thing to say is Google Ads won't fix a sinking ship. It's actually one of my more popular LinkedIn posts, actually. That's like literally the hook, is Google Ads will not fix a sinking ship. So that's kind of where my mind went, where it was just like, that's an immediate red flag. And that kind of comes down to the expectation side of things, right? Where it's just like, if they're off, they're off. No agency, nobody will be able to save you. Yes, somebody will come in and say, hey, yeah, I can. There's plenty of those people out there. But if you're hearing from multiple agencies, especially the ones that have a decent reputation, and they're saying, hey, no, listen to them.
Yeah, I would agree.
They've been doing it. I mean, I've been in this industry for 16 plus years. You've been at it, 17, 18 now? Like, I feel like our guts are going to tell us exactly what they need to be telling us. I feel like we won enough and failed enough to be able to tell you what we've learned from it. Whether you want to take that information or not is completely up to you. But I don't feel like at the end of it all, we are the ones who should be blamed if you're not listening.
Yeah. No, I would definitely agree. And I think it's to your point, like you and I know sort of what the CPC expectations are, what the margins, what the headwinds are going to go into. I'll go back to the supplement one, because it's very, very common that when I was on the agency side, I would have people come and say, we've been selling XYZ on Amazon. It's been going fantastic, and now we want to try Google. And I'm like, buddy, you are 20 years late. You're going to be going against the big guys, because guess who have those products and are running PPC? You're going against Target, Walmart, like Amazon itself. And like, wait, I'm going against Amazon buying PPC ads in Google? It confuses them, and you're going against all the retailers. It is a tough headwind. And so when you're coming and saying, my budget is $1,000 a month, we're just trying this, we're a mature platform at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, if you like this episode where we spilled the tea on the reasons why experts who love money would say no, feel free to like, comment, share this with friends. And don't take our no as a permanent no. Take it as a go back to the drawing board, reconfigure, and come back, because you've had that happen, and I have, where clients have come back 6 months, a year later in a better position.
Yeah, it's not a no, it's a not yet.
Kind of like dating. I'm going to marry you now. That might be an outtake.
Yeah.
All right, we're good. I'm going to press stop.